Welcome to the Alien Temple. Alien Temple, the greatest show on air. You have entered Alien Temple. I woke up in the dark. I woke up in the dark, 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 dark. Welcome to the Alien Temple. Alien Temple, the greatest show on air. You have entered Alien Temple.
Good evening, and welcome to the Alien Temple show. Tonight, I'm going to repeat last week's show, but I'm going to say a few more news stories. So tonight's show is going to be completely all about Nigeria. It won't be half of the show or 2/3 of the show. It'll be all about Nigeria from start to finish. And I'll be inserting new stories and also 3 new tracks. So it'll be like last week, but different. So that's my show for tonight, and I hope you like it. Here we go. A couple of weeks ago, I bought myself a drum kit. I was going to say I bought myself a new drum kit, but it's not a new drum kit. You see, I've got an acoustic drum kit, and I've got a drum kit made of percussion, and it's an amazing drum kit. It's got 2 timbales, 2 bongos, 2 kohans, if you know what kohan is. I sit on one kohan and I got another one. It's got 3 African drums and 4 Moroccan drums. It's all around me, and it's got 2 cymbals, but they're only small cymbals because I hit the cymbals with my hands. And then I got a small regular drum kit, which is like an acoustic drum kit. But I've always wanted an electric drum kit, but I'm not electric like digital electric, an analog electric kit. And I wanted one from the 80s. In the 80s, there was only 2 companies really which were in the limelight, which were making these electric kits, which were analog. One was Simmons, which is the most popular one, and the other was Pearl. Now, Pearl are a really big brand, and they make regular drums. Now, my favourite was the Pearl kit. I've actually got what we call the brain, which is the main part of the drums. I've got a Simmons one, but I had no pads. But I saw the Pearl one and it blew me away. It's almost like a synthesizer. You can go into the parameters, you can go in all the settings and change it, and it's all analog and it sounds wonderful. Anyway, I've been looking all years ago, and I just stopped looking. And then suddenly I saw one for sale in Cyprus. And so I looked at it, and it wasn't in good shape because these kits were manufactured in 1983, and it's 2025 now, so it's really old. And it wasn't in good shape, but I got it. I bought it. I took it home, and I spent about a week on it, and basically I covered the skins because there was cracks in the skins. It was obviously left for a long time in the sunlight, and the sun cracked them, but I covered the skins, restored the skins, and there was cracks, like the jack inputs were sunk into the pads. So I managed to open them, and they were cracked. I bought this glue, which is really powerful. It's literally not like super glue, but it's better than super glue, and it glues within minutes of when you put it on. So I got this electrical spray for contacts, which is quite expensive. You can spray it, and there's no fear of it shorting or anything. It cleans all the dirt and everything from all the contacts. I sprayed all of it, and I managed to fix everything. But the brain, what you call the brain, the main part, the synthesizer, because it's like a synthesizer, you turn it on, nothing was happening. And then you kept on turning it on, and it like flashed like it's going to go on, and it wouldn't go on. So I opened it up, and the switch was damaged. So I actually had a switch somewhere from an amplifier which I had, which I wasn't using. It wasn't working, and I was just going to throw it away. I saved it for parts, and I managed to find it. And you know, the switch was almost identical. It was amazing. You would not believe it. It's a Sony amp. So with my soldering iron, I took the old switch off, put the new switch on, soldered all the parts on. While I had it open, I sprayed everything, all the contacts, all the transformers, then wiped them clean. Put the cover back on again, turned it on, and it worked. And I got it all working and everything. Now, the hi-hat is an acoustic hi-hat. It's a real hi-hat. It's not an analog hi-hat. It's like an acoustic hi-hat. And I've got cymbals. I've got lots of cymbals. So I need to get some cymbal stands, because what I was going to do, I was going to have a ride cymbal, a crash cymbal, and what we call a splash cymbal, which is a small cymbal, which is a splash. I always like to have 3 cymbals. I know a lot of drummers have 4 cymbals, but I like 3 cymbals. So I had no drum stool, and all I had was this stool which I used, which I got from this shop called Jumbo, and it wasn't very good. And listen to this, you're not going to believe this. The other day I was walking to the garage to get my car because it's going to be repaired. And no, I took my car to the garage, and so I walked back, and I was on the way to the studio, my studio. And on the way back, there was this skip. And on the side of the skip, guess what I saw? A drum stool. And I'm not joking. Now, there's 2 types of drum stools. There's a drum stool, and you tighten it with this screw thing, and you adjust it. And there's the more expensive ones, which are hydraulic. So it's got a lever on the side, and you adjust it. And the seat's bigger and more cushioned. And that's what it was. It was the most expensive ones. Now, the Yamaha ones or the Tama ones, you can pay up to $250 for a drum stool, good one. And this one is better than all of them. Okay, it was left outside for a long time. It's got a little bit of rust here and there, but it's immaculate, absolutely immaculate. So I got myself a drum stool. Right, I've got a Roland Octopad, if you know what a Roland Octopad is. That was made in the 70s, so it's an old one. It's only MIDI. And so what I need to do is get a stand and put that on the stand, and I can get a stand. They sell them everywhere. And put it on a stand, and what I do is I got a Boss drum machine, and it's got some great sounds. I've got a load of drum machines. Honestly, I've got about 20 drum machines. I've got all the Roland ones, the 707, 727, 808, 606, the 505. The only one I haven't got is the 909, which was a really popular one. But I've got a Casio drum machine, which has got 8 sample pads on it, and it's a really old drum machine. I think it's called the RZ1. It's a drum machine which was made in the early 70s, and it's an analog drum machine, and it sounds exactly like a Lindrum. Sorry if I'm boring you. It sounds a lot like a Lindrum. So what I've done is I put 909 kick, 909 snare, I put all the 909 sounds. So it's like I've got a 909, a Roland 909. So I've got that. But for my Octopad, I'm going to use my Boss drum kit. It was either that or my Alesis. I got an Alesis SR16, which amazing drum kits. In their time, they were the first drum kits which you can tune all the drums, and an amazing drum machine. But the reason why I like the Boss, it's like a real drum, a real acoustic drum, and I can send a signal via MIDI to my Roland. When I play it, it will be like an acoustic kit. So if I put that next to the analog electric kit, I can play the analog, or I can just play acoustic. Right, if I confused you, I think I have, because I've totally confused myself. So that's what I'll be doing. I haven't done that yet, but that's what I'll be doing. I've got to find time to do that, because it's really difficult, because my workload is crazy at the moment. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Anyway, let's move on. I've bored you silly, haven't I, with drums, but you know I'm a collector of drums. I've said it in previous shows. I've got drums, percussion. I've got percussion which is old. When I say old, 60, 70 years old. I've got this frame drum which is almost 100 years old. It's almost falling to bits. The craftsmanship on it is amazing. And I've got tambourines which are over 50 years old. I've got Moroccan percussion. I've got African. I've got Egyptian. I've got percussion from Ireland as well. All the different types of percussion. I got timbales. Oh my God. I just can't stop even now. If I see some percussion and it looks really interesting, I'll buy it. I'm an addict. In the old days, I was an addict to watches. I've got over 300 watches, and I'm talking about Omegas, Rolex, Boulevards, Secondas, Acuras, all the big names. I've got all of them, and I've just got them in shoe boxes. And I keep saying to myself, I'm going to display them, because what's life about? You know, you get these things, you might as well put them down and enjoy them. I was talking in one of my shows that it's good if you got something and you look at it, and when you look at it, it makes you feel happy. I felt happy today because I walked into somewhere and it reminded me of when I was young, and thoughts just came flooding into me, and I felt so tranquil and happy. And sometimes I look at pictures, like there's a picture of my mum holding a rose. That made me feel happy. It made me feel like my dad, and he used to take pictures of us holding roses because he used to love his roses. And I just found this picture of my mum holding roses. My God, I'm rambling again. But yeah, I'll make this quick because I need to play some music as well. So yeah, I collect percussion. That's what I used to do. And these drums. I'm really happy now. I've got myself an analog electric pearl drum kit, which is amazing. So that's it. I think I can stop collecting for the moment. I was having one of them sessions all last week of looking into my old hard drives. Now, when I throw my computers away, when they're really, really old, I take the hard drives out. And a lot of my computers, the hard drives were IDE. If anyone knows anything about computers, that they will know that IDE hard drives are the really old hard drives. And a lot of them, they're so old, maybe some of them won't work. But I've got an IDE to SATA converter, if you know what that means. And it converts the data into modern time format so you can listen back to it on an external drive. It's like a case, and you put the hard drive in. Anyway, I was going through lots of different tracks. Now, I found this track. I think it was a really old track. I don't know how old. I think it was done in 1989. Originally, it was done in 1987. And then I did it again in 1989. And then I did it again in 1991, I think. And that was the original demo from the track I did, which went on the Fuse 2 album, which was recorded in 1993, I think, somewhere around there, or maybe in 1994, somewhere around there. So I think that I've got the demo of it, and I don't even think it's a demo. I think it was done like mastered, but in that time the technology wasn't as good as it is now. But still, I like it, and I think it can stand up to any dance track. It really can, and it was done on an Atari 1040 ST, which isn't a PC. It's an Atari computer, which is very basic, and there's no modern equipment. I mean, you have to do everything by, oh God, I don't even want to go there. It really takes ages because there's no rendering. When you save something, you save in real time, and it's really complicated, and I don't want to go through it now. But yeah, it was the old primitive method. But a lot of good dance tracks were recorded then. I mean, my favorite dance tracks, you know, like especially the kind of vocal trancey tracks were recorded then in the 90s, and they still stand up. So I think this one still stands up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it, and it's 6 minutes long, which is okay. And then there's some other tracks I found. I found about a handful of tracks, but I'm not going to play them all because I haven't got enough time. But I'll play about 3 or 4 of them. I'll put them back to back and play them like now and then on the next selection. Okay? I'll do that. So what I've also found was these collection of tracks I did where there's just percussion and my vocals and nothing else, no instruments. So half the percussion is done with my vocals, and it's done in that kind of African style because, as I said before, when I came back from Nigeria, I was in that mode for a long time, and that's all I wanted to do. So I did a lot of tracks, and I've lost a lot of them tracks on computers which have gone down, but I've managed to retrieve them from the hard disks that I've taken from the old computers, because I never throw the hard disks away. But because they're IDE, which is really old, and now we're SATA. And I've found all the old tracks, and I'm going to play 3 tracks, and the final one will be a track where it's all percussion and my vocals, and most of it will be my vocals done in a kind of rhythmic way. I'll say that again, in a kind of rhythmatic way. That's it. That's a new word. Never heard of that word before. Rhythmatic. In a kind of rhythmatic. Yeah, rhythmatic. Okay. In a kind of rhythmatic way with the percussion underneath. And of course, there's going to be a kick drum going, not right from the start, only sort of intermittently. So yeah, I'll be doing that. So that will be coming up as the next selection. So I hope you like it. Okay, here we go with this selection now.
Enter my world.
Welcome to the Alien Temple. Join me on this magical, mysterious, magnificent, musical journey. If there's only one show you've got to listen to all week, let it be the Alien Temple. So, enter my world every Saturday night from 10 o'clock to late. So join me, Harry Kakuli, for the greatest show on this earth, the Alien Temple. Let your imagination run wild. Good evening and welcome to my show. I'm trying to think how I met this guy called Barney. I think it was through the Grant family. The Grant family were friends with him, but the Grant family, like Eddie Grant and Alpine Grant, they had their own studios. And they were also in Stamford Hill, which was North London. And Barney was in Stamford Hill. He was a lovely guy. In the daytime, he was a banker, and he was really good. Like, he'll be in the studio, like engineering or producing, and then suddenly the phone will go off and he'll be giving people bank details and everything, or he'll just say, hold on a second, and he'll take the phone outside, because at that time we didn't have mobile phones. He'll take the phone outside and you can see him with a little notepad and stuff like that. But he was a great guy, but he had his faults, and at the end we just didn't get on well. But talking about this Nigerian thing, I had a lot of Nigerian people coming into Barney's studio. That's what gave me my big breaks. And there was one client who was like head of a church. It was a Pentecostal church. And I had experience with Pentecostal churches when I was young. And I kind of liked the singing and everything. The thing is, when Nigerian people sing in churches, it's really lovely. I really love it. It's slightly out of tune and slightly out of time, but it's great. There's something magical about it. And also the guitar playing. You get these guitar players in churches and these percussion players. And when all the percussionists play all together, it's the same. It's slightly out of time, but it's great. It's got this kind of authentic sound. I can't describe it. It kind of feels rooty and it feels real. It doesn't feel like machine-like. It feels real. And the singing is really good. Because it's slightly out of time, you can almost hear each individual voice. And when they blend together, you can actually feel the passion about being in church, and the passion about praising, and the passion about reaching out to God. And it's really quite touching, and I really liked it. And there's this guy who's head of the church, and I was actually did a lot of African stuff from South Africa, stuff from Zaire, and also stuff from Nigeria. So I did that. And as I explained earlier in the show, that I was really good at that, because I was really good at that because I did it a lot. I kind of like managed somehow to always do them sessions, do the Nigerian sessions and stuff like that. And so I really enjoyed it, and I really learnt a lot from that. I learnt a lot from the kind of how to sing and how to chant. And I did it myself. I used to do tracks and sing in the same way. It really gave me a lot of inspiration. So that's the other thing about me doing sort of Nigerian stuff. And the thing is, even as I said about the percussion, a lot of it wasn't expensive percussion. It was just like basic percussion, but the way it was played, it sounded really classy, although it wasn't quite in time, but it had really good tones. And that's what I liked about it. I liked the percussion, the singing, which was magical. And I liked the guitar playing. It had this, like, in Nigeria, there's this type of music, we call it juju. And it's kind of got this great guitar feel. And there's no other music which is like it. And it's such a good driving force. The guitar is such a great driving force. And also the bass. The way the bass is played, it's like played on the offbeat. No, sorry, it's played on the onbeat. And it really is a good, I don't know how to describe it really, but the bass complements the guitar. And they're the two instruments. In juju, the guitar is the main thing and the bass is the main thing. And also the drums are good. The drums have got a certain style, a kind of a shuffly style, which is good. And then you get the main feature, which is the percussion, the talking drum, the wooden drums, all the different drums, the kind of clay drums, and also the kind of a go-go, the bells and the cowbells and everything. There's so much. And there's a lot of percussion which makes a big sound, which contributes to the rhythm. I'm really rambling, I really am. But anyway, that was what I'd done. And all that helped, you see. When I did a lot of that, it made my knowledge stronger. It made my knowledge, I was more aware of all the different aspects of African music and Nigerian music. And that's it, really. That's all I wanted to say. There's a couple of more things I remember about Nigeria. First, I remember when we used to eat, I told you the story about there's a woman who came twice a day and she had a great big massive dish with all the food on top of her head, and she used to power walk through the jungle and the food was swaying around but it would never fall off. She knew how to keep the food in balance, as it were, on her head, and I used to get that twice a day. I didn't really like it. I felt, I don't really like people going out their way like that, and I felt really guilty every time she brought the food. And at weekends, there was all the people round that bit of land where the studio was, the servants. I hate using that word, servants, but, the helpers, the gardeners and everything. And we all used to meet at weekends and we all used to eat together. We used to eat meat dishes, mainly. Sorry if there's any vegans listening. But what I used to love was the yam and the plantain. If you don't know what plantain is, it's like a kind of like a banana, but it looks ripe. It's part of the banana family, and they used to fry it, and it was out of this world. I used to love that. And the plantain, which was amazing. But the one thing which used to put me off, everyone used to sit in a circle and used to eat with their hands. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone wash their hands. And everyone used to eat with their hands, like really go for it. And there was food all over their hands, all over their clothes, all over their mouth. And I used to kind of like not really want to join in. But I didn't want to be unsociable. I used to join in as well. And I used to do it as well with my although I didn't like it, but the food was really good. And another thing which they used to have fried ants. The ants were huge. The ants were the bigger. And I've seen. And I used to really look at them and think, how can you eat that? But they said, tummy, the 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 tummy. These ants, all they eat is yam, 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 yam. They don't eat anything. Disgust. They just eat fruit and yam and stuff like that. Cockroaches. Now, when you think of a cockroach, you think of these big, disgusting, nasty things which live in the sewer, which come up in the summer, and a lot of people scared of them. I know my mum used to scream every time she saw a cockroach, and they are very scary. And the female ones actually fly, and they actually attack you. Believe it or not, if they know they're under threat, like they know you're going to kill them, they would attack you. And as I said, the female ones fly, and they go for you. It's really scary. And they're like really dirty things. I mean, they live in the sewer amongst all the crap in there and everything. And then they come up in the summer because it's really hot, and they all over the place. So that's what I've always thought a cockroach was. But in Nigeria, they told me, no, these cockroaches, they live in the jungle, and all they eat is yam. That's all they eat. Nothing else but yam. And they said they taste like peanuts and they're full of protein. And, sorry if there's any vegans, but one day I built enough courage. I mean, forget the ants. I didn't touch the ants, but I got enough courage to eat a cockroach. And I know that it wasn't one of them nasty ones which live in the sewer. And when I ate it, it tasted really nice. It tasted just like peanuts. So they said, what do you think? And I said, yeah, I love it. So they gave me a whole plateful. And I ate about 3 or 4, but they were really filling. So that's my experiences, my eating experiences in Nigeria. Welcome back. Welcome to the Alien Temple Show. And this is another funny story about Nigeria. It was when I used to go out with this guy who was the actual head of A&R at EMI in Nigeria, which was based in Lagos. We used to go out to bars and stuff like that. And he always used to drop me off home. When I say home, that was when I was working with Chris, when I was working at the TV studio, because I was working at the TV studio for a good few months. And he always used to meet me there. He used to drive absolute miles to meet me. And we used to go to bars and just talk. He used to talk to me and he used to tell me his stories. Really fascinating guy. I mean, Odin was head of A&R at EMI Nigeria. He used to tell me about all the people that come there. And he says, they come all over Africa. They sit in the waiting room and they will not go until I see them. And he goes, some are awful, some are really good. But he says, we got too many people and we can't sign everyone on. But if somebody's exceptional, we will sign them. And he was telling me all these different stories of all the people who came to Nigeria, including Paul McCartney and Wings, because they recorded apparently in his house, he told me. Anyway, every time he used to drop me off, he used to say, wait here. Let's wait in the car because there's this guy you've got to see. And I waited, and there was this guy who came out from nowhere. And it's pitch dark, and you can just about see him. This guy looked like Michael Jackson. And when he used to walk and dance at the same time, and he used to walk and do this moonwalk. You'd think it's Michael Jackson. He looked exactly like him. And I looked at Odin, and he could not stop laughing. I mean, I don't really know why he was laughing so much, but he could not stop laughing. And the reason why he could not stop laughing is because this guy lived in the rural parts of Nigeria where people hardly have anything on. Some people walk around naked and they live in huts and they're self-sufficient. They don't depend on money. They can survive just by living on things which they grow, like potatoes, yam, plantain, mangoes. And they've got sheep, they've got goats, and they've got cows, and they just don't need money. They even make their own clothes. Although they don't wear much, they make their own clothes. And they got even herbal stuff. They got natural remedies. So they live in the jungle and they live in rural parts of Nigeria. But this guy looks like Michael Jackson. He's got all the clothes and everything, and he walks and dances at the same time. And Odin just couldn't get his head around it. He says, this guy shouldn't be here. And I can see why he was laughing. And every time he used to drop me off, we used to wait, and this guy used to come out from nowhere. He used to come out of the darkness from nowhere. Same time every night. And he used to do this little walk and dance thing. And you can hear his voice doing this kind of I'm not going to do it, but it's like a Michael Jackson, you know, the way he yells and does this rhythmic thing. He's doing all that. And he'll be there religiously, same time every night doing that. And it just stuck in my head. I was thinking of it all the time. And when I came to the UK, I was still thinking of it. I thought, this guy, amazing. Where does he come from every night at the same time? Anyway, that's another thing I remember. The next track I'm going to play is, well, let me tell you the story about this track. When I was at Red Bus, I did a lot of different productions. And Louis, who sung Always in the Kitchen of Parties, his manager was doing a project at Red Bus. And he heard some of my stuff and he said, look, I'd really like you to do a remix on Always in the Kitchen at Parties, Jonah Lewis' track. So I met up with Jonah Lewis. He gave me his number and I rang him up and went to his house. And he had his studio in his house, a home studio. And I did the mix. I think, about 3 or 4 different mixes. And they were released on an EP. And then I went back into Red Bus. And somehow, I'm not really sure, the guy who was managing Jonah Lewis, he was looking after Malcolm McLaren as well. I mean, I don't know whether Malcolm McLaren had a manager or he just had somebody looking after him and sorting out labels and stuff like that. And he told me, I'd like you to work on a handful of tracks which Malcolm's doing on his next album. Would you be into it? And I said, yeah. So I met up briefly with Malcolm McLaren and we talked about a few things. Then I went in the studio and I remember the person who's engineering the sessions was Dave Ford from PWL. And I was listening to everything, and basically I think it was about 4 tracks, which I don't know whether it was Malcolm McLaren's manager or he was looking after Malcolm McLaren's affairs. There was 4 tracks which he wanted me to get involved in. And then later on, I met Malcolm McLaren. He came in. The thing is, he kept on coming in and out the studio, and every time he was in the studio, he'd be on the phone for absolute ages. And he was telling me all these amazing stories I can't say on there, but there was some amazing stories he used to tell me. And when he was going through the tracks, he says, look, these 2 tracks, do what you want with them. I think he heard because his manager played in some of my tracks, and he knew that I was into African stuff and sort of tribal stuff. And he goes, you can do what you want with them and just, get on with it, and I'll listen to them afterwards. And I did. I actually spent a long time on these 2 tracks. And in the end, I spent most of the time on the 1 track, and I mixed it, but I couldn't find the mix because the mix I had, I'm not allowed to keep mixes because I was like the producer or the producer stroke remixer. I wasn't even remixing the tracks. The tracks were very basic. So I actually developed them. I actually built them up from nothing. So I just made a cassette copy of a monitor mix. It wasn't the final mix. If you don't know what a monitor mix is, it's the mix which you do when you just put everything out roughly and then you listen to it, and if it's not quite right, you go back and change it. Anyway, that's the mix I had, and it was on a cassette. And shortly after that, I finished and I went, and the management team, they just left these tracks for quite a few years. I'd done the recordings in the mid-90s. So I know there was an album called Paris in 1995, I think, or 1994. And then his last album was one called, it begins with, it's not Tranquilize, I think it's called Tranquilize. And that was in 2006, I think. And Malcolm died in 2010. So I'm not sure if it was for the album Paris, but I don't think it was, because that album had a set of musicians. I think it was for the next album. And I actually think maybe it wasn't for any of the albums. Maybe he just had these tracks he wanted to finish. A handful of tracks. When I say a handful of tracks, I think there was about 9 tracks altogether. He just wanted to get them all finished. And they were finished. And after about 7-8 years after that, he passed away. And I don't know what happened to the tracks, whether they got released or not. I think maybe they did get released, but the ones that I did were kind of half finished. And so maybe they didn't get released, or maybe none of the tracks got released, just tracks which he wanted to do, and we'd finished them. Of course, I'm quite really fussy, so I kept on going back and going back. But I've got the cassette copy of something which is almost finished, but not quite finished. And what I was going to do tonight is play it on air, if I'm allowed to. I don't know, but it's if it hasn't got released, I don't think anyone's heard it before. So this is, I suppose, a world exclusive. No one's heard this track before. It's a Malcolm McLaren track, which I developed and mixed and hasn't got aired in any kind of way. So I'm going to play that as the first track. And then I'm going to play a handful of Afro beat tracks. One of them was done in Nigeria and is a short track. It's only like 2 minutes 45. And the rest is with a South African woman called Sonsi. She sings 3 songs and another 2, so 5 songs. She sings 5 songs. So I'll just get on with it. So I hope you like this selection. Here we go.
Be afraid. Be very afraid. Let your imagination run wild. 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 Enter my world.
Welcome to the Alien Temple. Join me on this magical, mysterious, magnificent, musical journey. If there's only one show you've got to listen to all week, let it be the Alien Temple. So, enter my world every Saturday night from 10 o'clock to late. So join me, Harry Kakuli, for the greatest show on this earth, the Alien Temple. Let your imagination run wild. Good evening. And welcome to my show. A few weeks ago, I did a show which was about my experiences in Nigeria, but I did not do all the show like that. I only did half the show. And I said when I did the show that I would do it again, but fully devote a whole show on my trip to Nigeria and my experiences in Nigeria. So I'm going to do it now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you more stories and I'm going to put more tracks in there, more Afrobeat tracks. So this is going to be a good show and it's going to be a great show, in fact. So this whole African thing all started off at a studio I used to use and work in. It had no name. We just used to call it Barney's because the guy who had it was a guy called Barney, and it's a house he had. And him and his friend started to dig into the earth. And they dug and dug and dug with all this machinery. And they managed to build a basement. And that basement they turned into a studio. And it was a great studio. It wasn't an amazing studio, but it was an analog studio and all this old analog equipment. And I used to like it. And that's how I met the Grant family, Rudy Grant, Eddie Grant, Patrick Grant, Eddie Grant, Rudy Grant and Alpine Grant. Now, Alpine was like the head of the family, really. He was the one who used to organise things, and they had the music thing, and they used to import and export things from Ghana, because they all come from Ghana, although Eddie Grant lives in Barbados. And I got involved with them because they used to use it. And then the whole thing about the African thing, well, let me start off from the beginning. I used to work there, and then there was this band from St. Lucia, and they used to go there all the time. And I used to really like reggae. I kind of grew up on it, really. So it was a reggae band. And they really used to like me. And they said to me, do you want to be our permanent engineer? So in every gig we do, you come and engineer for us. And I said, yeah, I'd love to, because I used to like their music. And we used to go all over the place. And they used to do the Notting Hill Carnival. And I used to be on the truck with them every year. I mean, I was engineering with them for about almost 3 years. And through them, I met another band called Masquerade. Now, this band were the biggest carnival band, and they were from Trinidad, and they did soca music. They actually introduced me to soca music, and I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. I used to love it so much. And through them, I met a lot of different people, plus a guy called Smokey Joe. He had a little shop with this other guy called Tim. Now, this guy called Tim had a record label called Tim Records. And he had all this obscure reggae, and so did Smokey Joe. But Smokey Joe was more involved in soca and calypso. He was Trinidadian. He was an Asian Trinidadian guy, but he was very knowledgeable. I got involved with him. And then I got involved with a lot of other artists. And then Masquerade said to me, do you want to be our permanent engineer? We love what you do. So I was kind of engineering for Masquerade and this other band, I forgot their name. The weird thing about this, their manager was called Mr. Brown, and he was a Jamaican guy, and the lead singer was a woman, and she used to go out with Mr. Brown, and she never used to call him by his first name. In fact, no one knew what his first name was. She used to call him Mr. Brown. We all called him Mr. Brown. That was his name, Mr. Brown. None of us knew what his first name was. Mr. Brown, in the end, said, look, you can't do two. You either got to work for them or work for us. So I decided to work for Masquerade. Every Sunday, they used to play in this place called Dougie's in Clapton Pond. It's like a club where they play mostly soca and calypso. It was soca calypso on Sunday, and Saturday was the reggae night. And I was the only white guy there. And then the guy who owned it was a guy called Dougie. And Dougie said to me, we love what you do. Do you want to be our resident engineer? You engineer for our club? And I thought, oh my God, is this going to work? But I really like the club. So I said, yeah, okay. So I ended up the resident engineer for Dougie's, and I was the only white guy in the club. But they used to really love me, and they all used to treat me so nice. The food was amazing. They were amazing. Such a great place. The memories will live with me forever. They were really good. Anyway, through that, I worked at Hollywood Studios, because Hollywood Studios is across the road from Dougie's. And then I met tons of Trinidadians, Jamaicans, and that's where I met Maxi Priest. And I used to do some mixing with Maxi Priest. I used to do a lot of stuff. And then I got really friendly with him. And then I went back to Barney's. Barney called me and said, look, we got these Nigerians which want to do some tracks, and I know that you're really busy now, but do you want to come and work with them? And I said, yeah. But they got some really good music. So I did that. And from that, two of the artists were guitarists, and one of them was called Chris, same name as the Chief. And he actually knew this guy in Dalston who was the brother of King Sunny Ade. Now, if you know your African music, you know that King Sunny Ade is one of the biggest artists in Africa. And he said to me, look, my brother wants someone to remix his album. You're great. We really like what you do. And he said, look, he's coming over to England because he's playing the Brixton Academy. In fact, he played the Brixton Academy and it was sold out. And I had a VIP ticket. And I went backstage, met him, we got introduced. And he said, look, we really like what you do. And then King Sunny, I called him Sunny. He heard what I did and he says, I love the way you equalised the drums and everything. So I ended up working with him. In fact, I ended up doing an album with him. And this is where the Nigerian thing came in. He had contacts with EMI Nigeria. Now, while I was doing this album, I know quite a few people at Stearns Records. Now, Stearns, a really big world music label, and they mainly do African music. And when they knew that King Sunny Ade was in London and I was recording him, they came down, they said, do you mind if we sit in on the sessions? I said, no, I don't mind. Ask Sonny, he might mind. And they asked him and he said, no, of course not. They were a lovely bunch of people. They really were. I loved them. The guitarist made me laugh. All the time I was laughing. He should have been a comedian. There's a couple of them who play percussion. They were so funny. The band were massive. It was like something like a 16-piece band. It was so electric when they all played. I don't know how I did it, but I just got used to it and I was really good at it. I found out that this is my thing. I'm really good at African music. I'm really good at producing it and engineering it and stuff like that. And through that, they wanted me to go to Nigeria. They said, look, we need to do the final mixes in Lagos, but we want you to come. You've got to come. So that's the connection. And at the same time, I was at Barney Studios, I was at Hollywood Studios, and then I went to Red Bus. And that's when I went to Red Bus at that stage. And when I went to Red Bus, I told him that I'm at Red Bus. And when he found out I was at Red Bus, they came down, they loved the studio. And so we did a lot at Red Bus. In fact, we did all the recording at Red Bus. And then we went to Abbey Road. And we spent about a week at Abbey Road. All the vocals were done at Abbey Road. but he did not want to mix at Abbey Road. He said, we need to go to Nigeria and mix it. So I said, okay. And at that time, I met the head of A&R at EMI, a guy called Odeon, and he had some stuff he wanted me to do. Plus, that's how I met Chris. He said, I know somebody who's got a TV studio and he's doing a lot of documentaries. Would love you to get involved. And I thought, oh, this is amazing. I'm working with King Sunny out there. I'm doing some stuff for EMI and I'm going to be doing some documentaries. I thought, this is amazing. I'm going to Africa. And that's basically how I went to Africa. That's the lead up to me going there. So, and there's other stuff I got involved in, like reggae, as I said, calypso. I was doing soca. I was doing the Notting Hill Carnival every year. I was on the trucks and I was doing duggies. So I was involved in a big, lots of calypso, lots of soca, lots of reggae. Also, let me tell you this, the keyboard player who plays keyboards for Eddie Grant was an old boy. He's a Trinidadian guy, but he knew lots of African people, and it's through him actually that I met Odium, and he brought these Nigerian people, and we did a Nigerian version of that Michael Jackson song. Oh God, what's it called? I don't know. It's a really big one. It's Off the Wall. It's off the Wall album, and it's a really famous Michael Jackson track. But the singer actually sounded exactly like Michael Jackson, but he was singing in Yoruba. And it was all percussion and talking drums. And it was an amazing track. I wish I had it. But you know something, when I moved to Cyprus, it got lost with a lot of stuff. A lot of my really amazing mixes, I called them amazing because I thought they were amazing, they got lost. And through that, that's what Odeon heard, because it was an EMI project and he loved what I did to it. So I had the stuff with EMI to do, and then I had the King Sunny out there stuff to do, and then I did the documentaries to do as well. So I went there feeling really excited, and that's how I went to Africa, and that's why I went to Nigeria. Quite a few years, about in the 90s, and it wasn't very good. I went there, and I was really excited to go there. It was like I had some great jobs there, recording top artists, working for EMI Nigeria in their Lagos studios, and also working in a TV studio, doing TV shows and stuff like that. And it was really exciting, I thought, but in reality, it wasn't that exciting. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that right through. And what I'll be doing is I've been looking for a lot of my tracks which are kind of Afrobeat orientated. Does it make sense? That word, does it exist? Orientated, yeah. And a couple of tracks which I did in Nigeria. I mean, I did a lot of stuff there. I left them there. I didn't take much with me. In them days, we didn't have the internet technology, so you can back them onto a cloud. I don't think there was such a thing called a cloud then. So you literally have to save it onto, well, I don't even know if there's USB sticks then, but it wasn't so easy like it is now. But I've got about 2 or 3 tracks which I did in Nigeria, and I'll be playing them. And also stuff I did in the UK and here in Cyprus, which are very Afrobeat orientated. Right, and I'll be doing that. And of course, I'll be finishing the show with a chilled set, which will be an uninterrupted chilled set. So there will be no annoying talking. It would just be 2 hours of non-stop chilled music, which will be my tracks mixed all in together or edited or in some cases remixed. But that's what it will be. Temple. Welcome to the Alien Temple. Join me on this magical Alien Temple. Every Saturday night from 10 o'clock to late. So join me, Harry Kakuli, for the greatest show on this earth, the Alien Temple. Let your imagination run wild. Welcome back. The weeks went past and the months went past and I was getting really anxious. I didn't know what was going on and I enjoyed it at first and I still enjoy the studio work and I enjoy being in a great studio. But there was stuff which I saw which used to really shock me. Chris is the chief. He had this thing that if somebody betrayed him or if somebody did something which he didn't agree with, he'll publicly beat them up. When I say beat them up, he'll get them just in their underwear and they'll be in this make-do cage which was made of bamboo and he'll be in there with a whip and he'll be whipping them and there'll be all his servants and all his close friends and they'll be cheering him and laughing and the guy will be saying, sorry, I'm so sorry, and he'll be doing this for about 10 minutes and he'll be whipping him like really severely and I couldn't really go there. I couldn't really look at it. It was really horrible. Things like that used to put me off. And he used to do things like he used to publicly humiliate people. Like if somebody did something wrong, he would shout at them and make them feel like rubbish. I didn't like that as well. And he was always in the bank. He was doing all these deals with the bank manager. As I said previously in my show, there's a lot of corruption. Not in Nigeria, but within a few places in Nigeria, there's a lot of corruption. Now, he used to laugh about it, like he's going to punish someone. And I didn't think it was really funny. Not at all. I didn't find it one bit funny. And it really made me want to go. And sometimes I would hint to him and say, look, what we're going to do, when it was getting to the end of my visa, he extended it. And I don't know how he extended it. He's got contacts. In fact, he extended it 3 times. I was meant to be there first. I was meant to be there for 3 months. And I ended up being there like 8 months. And so I was getting near the 9 months, which was like every time. No, he extended it twice. So I was meant to be there 3 months. He extended it to 6 months. And then he extended it again to 9 months. And that's when I decided to go. After the 7.5 months, I was making arrangements with the guy from the producer at EMI who knew him really well. And in fact, the producer from EMI knows a lot of contacts at the airport. He knows a lot of contacts from the government and he helped me get out. Anyway, I finally got out and it was amazing. It was truly amazing. But Chris didn't like it. Like Chris actually flew to London looking for me. And you know, he found me through 2 studios. One studio is a studio where they made arrangements for me to go over there. And he didn't find me, but he found my phone number. He was not going to have it that I left. He came to London with his son and he tracked me down. He went to the studio where Odeon was using and he asked, because he got Barney's contact through Odeon and he got the address and the phone number. So he went there and he actually asked Barney where I lived and he asked him for my phone number. And at that time, we didn't have mobile phones. It was the phone number of my house. And Barney said, yeah, I got his address as well if you want it. And he gave him my mum's address because at that time I was living with my parents. So one weekend I was at home and he just turned up my doorstep And I was upstairs and my mum answered the door and she said, there's a couple of African people who come to see you. And when I went down, I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to get a heart attack. It was Chris. And I just stepped outside. I said, Chris, what are you doing here? And he said, you broke my heart. You broke my heart. I took you in like a son. And look what you've done. And I tried to explain to him, I was outside in the front garden. And I said, look, why don't we go somewhere? And he goes, okay. I said, so where are you staying now? He said, he's staying at a hotel in town. And I said, okay, look, I need to tell you why I left. So I arranged to see him. And he said, let's go and eat something. I want to eat something. And you know, I need to tell you, I've never seen anyone so funny. He came with a bowler hat. I don't know if you know what a bowler hat is, and an umbrella. He came with a bow tie. It wasn't even a normal tie. It was a bow tie, a bowler hat, and an umbrella and a big coat. And his son had a bow tie and an umbrella as well. So I said, okay, ring me tomorrow and I'll meet you. And he goes, okay, let's go out tomorrow and you can tell me what happened because you broke my heart. I look at you like a son. And I said, look, Chris, you broke my heart as well because I expected a lot from you. And it's just like you did not want to let go of me. And it's just like I got scared, especially when you was beating them people up. And especially when you wouldn't let me go. And I just felt like, at times, I felt like a prisoner. And I tried to explain to him. And he said, okay, let's talk. And I promise you, you come back to Nigeria and I won't treat you like that again. I will give you whatever you want. I'll give you more money. And I said to him, I had no money. I gave all my money away to come here. I came to England without a penny. And so anyway, we met. He said, I want to have typical English food. So I knew a really nice place in Church Street. It does traditional fish and chips. The pies in there were amazing. They do steak kidney pies. And I said, I'll take you to a place where they do really nice English food. And so I had steak kidney pie. He goes, what's that? And I said, it's got steak and kidney in it. And you know what made me laugh? He had it. And he goes, I really like this meat cake. I said, Chris, it's not called a meat cake. He goes, what's in this meat cake? I said, no, it's not called a meat cake. It's called a steak. It's called a steak and kidney pie. But he was making me laugh. And you know, he said that I want to go across London Bridge. And I remember I took him there. We got a taxi to London Bridge. And he was walking with his umbrella and his bowler hat. It was the most funniest thing ever. And you know, I couldn't be angry with him because he looked really sweet. And his son adored me. I really liked his son. His son was Chris Jr. He was a lovely guy. And you know, at that time, I thought, well, I'll go back. You know, I almost went back and I said, okay, Chris, I'll go back. But it's all got to be different. It can't be like it is. And he said, okay, I'll make arrangements. I went back home and I said, Mum, I might go back to Africa again, back to Nigeria. She goes, no, they almost killed you. I'm not going to let you go. I'm going to tell your dad. And my father ballistic. My dad says, you are not going over my dead body. You're not going. But Chris was making arrangements. And so he said, you are not going over my dead body. Look what happened last time. You're lucky you're here. And I said, yeah, but he's changed. He goes, no, he hasn't changed. He's doing this because he's trying to get you over there. And once you're over there, this time he will definitely keep you in a prison. You managed to escape last time, but this time you won't. And I was thinking hard about it. And you know, as much as my dad used to treat me bad, I felt like he was really talking sense. And I felt like he was really loved me and he really did not want me to get in danger. And he really meant it. And he was looking at me with them eyes, but not them bad eyes, with good eyes. And I thought, okay, my dad's making a lot of sense. So I met up. I thought I'm going to tell him face to face. And I told him, but I didn't say the reason why. I said, look, my parents don't want me to go, and they really don't want me to go. But you got my number, and in the future, in the near future, I will come, but I can't come right now. And he was begging me, and I says, look, Chris, I can't come not now, I can't come, but I will think about it. You've got to give me space. And he did. He gave me space. He stayed in the UK, in London. He did all the tourist bit and everything. And we went out again and had another meal. And he went back and he left it like that. He didn't bother me after that. And that was the end of that. That was the end of that chapter. Okay, let's move on now.
Masamba
Be afraid. Be very afraid. Let your imagination run wild. 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 Enter my world.
Welcome to the Alien Temple. Join me on this magical, mysterious, magnificent, musical journey. If there's only one show you've got to listen to all week, let it be the Alien Temple. So, enter my world every Saturday night from 10 o'clock to late. So join me, Harry Kakuli, for the greatest show on this earth, the Alien Temple. Let your imagination run wild. Good evening, and welcome to my show. There's another few stories I want to tell you about Nigeria. The first one was Chris, who's a chief. His accountant was a young guy. He was in his early 20s, and he was always talking to me about his granddad and how much he admired his granddad. And once he took me there, and he told me that his granddad lives in a remote village and all the houses are built with mud and straw. And he said, let me take you to my granddad. He's a very wise man and I really am close to him. And he loves me and I love him very much. So I went there and it was in a really remote place. It was like no electricity. It was like in the middle of a jungle. That's what it looked like. It actually looked like a jungle. And there was huts and there was people there. And they were like half dressed or half naked. They just had hardly anything on. But Nigeria is very, very hot anyway. And he took me to his uncle and he says, his granddad. And he said, Granddad is talking in Yoruba. There's two languages basically in Nigeria. There's Yoruba. Oh my God, I can't forget the other one. I forgot the other one. But he was talking to him in, I think it's Yoruba, which is the language which the people in Lagos talk. And then I think it's Igbo and Yoruba. There's two languages, and he was talking in one of the languages. And I noticed that I saw a lot of people in the village, and I noticed that their eyes were yellow. The white bits of the eyes weren't white, they were yellow. And I'm not talking about a yellow just about, I'm talking about a real yellow. And I was wondering why their eyes are yellow. So this accountant, I forgot his name, but I said to him, when we went back in the car, I said, I noticed that all their eyes are yellow. Why is that? And he goes, it's the drink they drink. And they all drink it. I said, what's that? He goes, it's called palm wine. And they drink it and it makes your eyes go yellow. The white bits go yellow. And he was laughing when he was saying it. And I was wondering why he was laughing, because he was driving and he kept on laughing all the time. Anyway, we went back and I saw Chris and I said, your accountant, he took me to see his granddad, and the village, they all had yellow eyes instead of white. They had brown eyes in the middle and then yellow. And he was laughing as well. And he goes, it's that palm wine. He goes, you should take some. It's really good for you. It keeps you young. It's good for your bones and stuff like that. And you know something? I didn't know, right, I found out later on, that this palm wine was a powerful drink. It made you not drunk, but it made you like high, like you're on drugs. It's a drink which makes you hallucinate. And it's not a very good drink, but they're used to it and they used to like it. And they got immune to it. So it didn't actually, it made them high and it made them feel good, but it didn't hit them as much as like somebody who'd take it for the first time. And they were laughing, saying, yeah, you should take it. And I'm not into drugs. I don't take drugs, never have done. So Chris's accountant says, oh, let's visit my granddad again. He liked you. He was talking about you and he wants to see you again. I said, okay, let's go there. And they were drinking palm wine. And I said, what's palm wine made of? And he goes, well, it's made of several things, but the main ingredient is the oil from the palm trees. And we keep it for a long time until it goes slightly off. And then we put other things in it. And we put sugar in it to make it sweet and we drink it. And then he goes, why, do you want some? And I said, yeah, I heard that it's good for you. And he laughed and he goes, yeah, it's very good for you. And so I drank some. And, you know, I thought I was going to die. I could not breathe. I was seeing all these things in front of me like devils and bad spirits. And my heart was beating so fast I thought it was going to jump out my body. And my legs were feeling like rubber. My arms were feeling like rubber. I couldn't talk. It was like I was biting my tongue. It was horrible. And it lasted for like about over an hour. I just could not do anything. I slumped in a corner and I was just like freaking